in a predominantly African-American community that is very low resource and has been historically neglected from our city. It is important to go back about 18 years where there's 3 different events that are happening at the same time in this community. First of all, there's a landfill that runs up against the residential areas that have been created as people have been pushed out of the inner city, that has been dormant for a long time, that the city, through no other reason, just through racial oppression, want to open again. At the same time, there's a detention center that, for also no other reason but just to continue the segregation of our communities, is trying to open in this community as well. And they're so arrogant about it that they sell the land before they even get permission to move this in. So this community, who has their roots of working decades at that point with each other for civil rights, a lot of the community are the same people that helped organize the sit-ins in the Greensboro area, and grew up in a very socially active and politically active community. They fought to keep the landfill closed, and they also fought to keep the detention center out, and they won those fights. And it was a huge amount of work and just a tremendous example of community strength, and also a really amazing example of allyship that happened in our community as people from the other side of Greensboro started aligning themselves and using their privilege to push on political power. So the community, after fighting against the landfill and the detention center, they threw out the entire city council. And we love to remember that moment. But in that moment, they're like, wow, we're really stretching our wings. But at the same time that this fight is going on, because of this consolidation, like we saw, of the different grocery stores dividing up turf, the Winn-Dixie, which is the only grocery store in this area, leave. And they make up all kinds of reasons why they left, that it wasn't profitable, that too many people stole from it, that they just didn't make money, and none of it is true. If we watch, Winn-Dixie slowly pulls out of North Carolina as a whole, and this is just a part of that wave. But the community's left with this legacy of just really racist lies and really classist lies that create this opportunity for the city to continue to push off any efforts to reinvest in this community. So they've been fighting for a grocery store for 18 years. And right now, well, actually not right now, if you go back in time about a month ago, it takes, where the co-op is located, it takes people about 20 minutes in some situations to go get a fresh tomato. So there's just no fresh food involved. We're not even having an organic, natural food conversation. There's just no food. And the food locations that are around are convenience stores where they're hiking up their prices and they're extraordinarily exploitive and just really dismissive of the community. So they're selling milk for $5 a gallon and really, just exploiting all of the WIC and SNAP benefits that are happening in this without giving actual nutrition to our community. So this community, as they were fighting all these battles, the grocery store has always been a part of that conversation. We need food, we need food, we need food. Finally, about 5 years ago, there was this group called the Fund for Democratic Communities that started exploring around with this idea of co-ops. And they have a lot of ties to that community, and it just happened to have a conversation with that community saying, we have begged for all the Save-A-Lots in the world to come down here, and everybody said no. And we begged for the city to force somebody to come down here, and everybody said no. What if we built this ourselves? What if we built a co-op? And I think that's a really important point because it wasn't from the touchy-feely, sort of hippy-dippy kind of notion of a co-op. It was like, oh my gosh, this is the way that we control our ability to actually feed ourselves. And it lowers our costs, and it lowers the likelihood of this institution ever leaving, because if we own it, why would we ever vote to have it go away? So they started down that route, and we had, at that point, we were pulling meetings together to talk about the co-op that were ranging from 50 to 250 folks. Since that point, we're 5 years deep. We have monthly meetings that continue to pull out that many people. And as it stands right now, we have 950 owners, which is really incredible because the majority of them are from the neighborhood. And I'm talking about putting nickels and dimes down every time we're meeting and building that economic power together. and it being very centrally located. Yes, going back to how we were approached, or how we approached the food co-op world, we naively thought that we were all talking about the same thing in a lot of situations, and we were very bluntly told when we first started that we did not have enough educated white folks in our community, and that we could never ever build a grocery store that was sustainable. We actually are at a position where we're very grateful for some of that beginning turnout, because it forced us to do things different and break the mold that exists right now around co-ops. So one of the first things that we did was we decided we were not going to be a natural organic store. And don't get me wrong, we have organic products in our store, but that is not our center point. Our central point is affordability and healthy and local. And the idea that until I get a tomato in our community, then we can have the conversation of what's the best type of tomato to have in this. But right now we just need a damn tomato. So we ended up using a local distributor called MDI, and then we broke the mold of using UNFI. And because we did that, we were allowed a much wider breadth of options of affordability. And also with, like I said, we do have these organic products in there, but it's their house brand. And so it's actually a much cheaper organic than what you find elsewhere. With that, the local distributor also still works with a ton of local producers. So by default, we're putting a lot more North Carolina products on our shelves than not, which is super exciting. Another thing that we were able to do was just sort of shake up the food industry as we know it right now. And we created some temporary enemies, I think, that have come back on our side. But we also created a bunch of allies and friends within the industry that was saying this is where the co-ops need to go. Because we're not the only food desert out there, and the big chain grocery stores are repeatedly pulling out of lower resource communities to concentrate their food into higher resource communities as if rich people are the only people that eat. So we are challenging this system, and we're bringing a lot of people that are really excited about this, and then are starting the conversation of, can the Renaissance Community Co-op be a model for other communities that are facing similar situations? And we're really excited to say that this is the first time I'm giving a presentation about the RCC with the doors open. So we were able to open our doors 5 days ago. Of low resource folks, we raised $2.4 million to make this happen. We also, when we were first deciding about this co-op, one of the major two things that came out was that we needed access to food, but we needed access to good, dignified jobs. So our starting wage is the same starting wage as the Whole Foods in the wealthy area, and which is incredible, and is not like the other food co-ops, honestly, in North Carolina. Like, a lot of them are reaching up to it, but they didn't build into their pro forma from the beginning that we're starting at. Well, it's in North Carolina, so it's $10. I know it's more here, but $10 is a really big deal in North Carolina. And we have the but we also have the commitment as we grow that we're going to get as close to that living wage as we possibly can, with while still maintaining the community's sustainability of it. A couple lessons that I've learned from this is I love a good research or a market research study, because that made the world of difference. For a million times that we were told no, one of our saving graces was that the community, as we found, within a 2-mile radius, spends $1,343,365 a week on food. Yeah. And you think about the track that people are taking to spend that money, because sometimes they're catching 2 to 3 buses to go to the Walmart or go to the Family Dollar, and you think about how much cash they're losing along the way, either through paying for the bus or paying for taxis. And there's a lot of folks around our area that don't have any access to cars. And so you think they're spending that amount of money, but the basket size is so small. So when people kept saying well, you can't do it, you don't have the right demographics, you don't look right, this isn't the right type of store, we're all about natural, you can't do conventional stuff here, we just kept having the line of everybody eats, and our number proves it. And so if we could just capture 5% of our 2-mile radius, we're going to be profitable in 5 years. And we really think that that's an extraordinarily conservative mark, and we expect a lot larger, but we wanted to make sure that everything that we built was on very, very conservative numbers, and that we have a ton of cash reserves in order to ride the wave until we get to that point. And so that's extraordinarily exciting. Also, another thing, we had created owner loans that were low enough that many people in the community could just use that and be able to invest beyond their membership. We also have a $100 membership or ownership that's a lifetime situation, and it covers your whole family, and you can, like I said, pay it in any sort of installment possible. I think online it says $20 and then $5 a month, but like I said, people come in with like $2 at a time. And then also in the 5 years, we've raised $70,000 just through passing the hat at our meetings. So that's also one of my big things as we're all starting these ventures, pass the hat, pass the hat. It seems like a small thing when you're pulling in just change, but over that long-term cycle, you're gonna build up a huge amount of cash, and it's all from the community. So I had a few questions that Caitlin asked around the products on our shelves. We did an extensive amount of surveys, and we also used our community spaces to make as much decisions as possible. So even though we have a board, many of the actual concrete decisions were made in those community rooms with those 50 to 250 folks. So they told us exactly what products they wanted to see, what products they had been missing for a long time, and so we're actually able to have these moments where people are coming in and being like, I haven't seen this in 20 years, and being able to purchase it. But it's really tailored to that community. But it also includes, because people wanted to get back into a lifestyle of cooking for themselves, our produce department is ginormous. Another thing that came about is we don't have butchers in our city anymore, because that's just like a dying art form, and we have a butcher at the RCC, so you can get specially cut meats, and then have that one-on-one conversation of what am I going to do with this steak at night. So that's really exciting. But then also, like, they picked the colors on the wall, they picked the logo, they picked this tagline, they picked like a tremendous amount of stuff, and then going back to these jobs and really trying to drive that dignity thing. So I've been really honored working as the governance and chairperson to try to synthesize all of these ideas into policies and practices that are going to live beyond this board. And also a real big pride of ours is we wrote an employee's manual that I think is one of the most exciting employee manuals, and you think like that's a really dry and whatever, but it's like so happy and so acceptive and so like inclusive, and I'm just really proud of it. So if anybody wants to look at an employee manual to use in their co-op, let me know. I would love to share it around. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, we just opened our doors the other day. Our workforce, that was the other thing I was going to say. We ended up having 2 job fairs at the library that sits right in front of us. And so our workforce is 90% from the community, and about 75% of that is within a 5-block radius. So we have a ton of people that are walking to work, and a ton of folks that were able to find jobs that live in the public housing that is right next to us. That is one of the largest public housing communities in Greensboro. So we're really excited that our workforce dramatically reflects our community, and they're very close ties with them, and we have that added benefit of having a lot more people come through the door because their aunt works there, or their cousin works there, or their sister works there, or their neighbor works there. So that's really exciting. Our board is also representative of that. About 75% of us live in the neighborhood, and then we have a couple, like I said, that are allies from across the city that we're able to provide a little bit more tailored experience. So we have a lawyer that has a long experience in labor rights and history, and so we wanted him to be a part of that. And then also folks that have been a part of that long